You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Innovation Fuel, business podcast by University Canada West,
bringing you fantastic stories for accomplished entrepreneurs and key industry professionals. Let's explore the entrepreneurial world through local businesses and our university community. Hi, Gelareh, what is going on? Are you ready for Halloween?
Oh my God, I'm so excited about Halloween and costume party and my daughter costumes, and so good. I'm so excited about having it.
Hey, Gelareh, one of the things that I always constantly think about is that my kids over Halloween, because it's late and it's dark, we use a lot of glow sticks. Like we break those things.
We do. Oh, I know.
You guys do?
Nava is obsessed with them. Beside Halloween, she's obsessed with them.
So what always is concerning to me is what happens to them. What's in them per se? Like, is it safe for us? And where do they go after we're done with them? Like, where's the waste? Are we polluting the planet more?
Is it recyclable?
I don't know
because we don't know if you put it in the recycling bin or not in the recycling bin, and because yes, outside the plastic, what it's inside of it, is it recyclable or not? That's a question, and I think we have a guest today that she can respond to all of them, and she also have a lot of good solution for our environment and glue sticks. Let's welcome Paige Whitehead, CEO and co-founder of Lux Bio, to another Innovation Fuel podcast. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Paige.
Yes, welcome to Innovation Fuel, brought to you by University Canada West. We are back in Vancouver. We're here. We might be exploring something to do with glow sticks, music concerts, maybe Savory Island, and then maybe even I'm going to try bioluminescent technology. Now, I may not have pronounced that right, but Paige is going to give us some information around that. Paige, before we jump into you and Lux Bio, tell us a little bit about Paige.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paige, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lux Bio. Yeah, a little bit about me. I guess, I started out as being kind of more of a environmentalist. My whole life, I was really, really passionate just about environmental causes, and I got more into activism, and that kind of led me into science, where I saw there's a lot of really serious innovations happening that on a materials level made our world a better place. And then that's what led me to entrepreneurship, because what is a discovery or a technology if it's not used everywhere? That's really where the impact is. So that's kind of what led me here. I'll be telling a lot more about it, I'm sure. I recently moved to Vancouver. I've been here for about a year. It's been amazing. And I'm always looking to connect with other entrepreneurs and, build a community here. So definitely feel free to get in touch if anything that we talk about, sparked any questions.
Love it, Paige. Now, Paige, we're talking about Lux Bio. So tell us a little bit about what does Lux Bio solve? What problem is it solving out there?
Thank you. Yeah, so Lux Bio is a bioluminescence development company. And we got started after learning about just how dangerous and toxic the chemiluminescence industry is. So chemiluminescence, you've probably seen if you've ever lit up a glow stick. So the chemical reaction inside is chemiluminescence, and it's when light is made by a chemical reaction. Unfortunately, this reaction leads to very dangerous byproducts and ends up, as kind of non-managed waste. So millions of glow sticks have been picked up off of beaches worldwide. I personally picked up so many off the ground of music festivals that I've gone to. And yeah, that's what we're trying to solve, is to completely replace that chemical reaction with bioluminescence. So I'll get more into that, but basically bioluminescence is a way to create light without any toxic byproducts and using kind of the technology of nature to be the bedrock of what we build.
So coming back, Paige, you've discovered this idea. Now, you discovered this idea, interestingly, on a beach on Savory Island, was it?
Yes, my first time ever seeing bioluminescence. It was a beautiful, warm summer night, and my friends and I were camping out on the beach. And we're like, let's go swimming. And all of a sudden, the water started lighting up around us as we were swimming. And I never forgot about that. It's one of the reasons why I went to study microbiology in university. I always found it fascinating. And yeah, now I get to work with it every day. So it's been fantastic.
So, can you give us this how this lume contribute to sustainability in which industry you're targeting?
Yeah, so the industry that we're focused on replacing is the chemiluminescence industry. So these chemicals are used, as I said, for glow sticks, but also for many other things in different industries, such as manufacturing quality control, in biomedical assays, and more. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and all that waste just doesn't need to be made anymore. So that's what we're trying to solve.
Okay, so chemical industry. That's your focus. Is there any specific products that you're focusing and targeting to be part of that? Or
definitely. So our first kind of flagship product that got us all started is a fully compostable and non-toxic glow stick replacement. So one of the things that shocked me when I was doing the initial research into this problem was that glow sticks were originally invented by the US military. So chemiluminescence is a military invention, and they still buy like millions of glow sticks every year for their standard operations. We're doing actually a lot of work right now with the Canadian Coast Guard to replace their uses of chemiluminescence and also for other life-saving devices. And there's a lot of reasons, for that. Dealing with hazardous waste is not something you want to be doing ever, as an institution. So that's kind of been one of the leverage points that we're leaning on as we look at the more industrial applications.
That is really fantastic. But I have another question about regulatory. Is there any challenges you have with regulatory body or any incentives?
Definitely lots of incentives, I would say. So because of our work, I guess one of the questions I get asked a lot on the regulatory side is, so bioluminescence, like, is what you're making alive? Is it a GMO? And that's one of the amazing things about working with an enzyme is at its core, an enzyme is kind of a fancy protein. It's not alive. It serves a function, but it's basically an inert material unless it reacts, with a very specific molecule. So that's one of the main reasons why we focused on kind of enzymatic bioluminescence. It's a very controllable reaction. We don't have to keep anything alive. And it's something that, in terms of the regulatory environment, is just very well understood. If you've ever taken a lactase pill, if you have lactose sensitivity, or if you've ever used even like cold water powdered laundry detergent, there's enzymes in there doing their work, digesting like fats and food bits that might end up on your food. So exactly the same type of process for scaling up, for developing our enzymes, and the regulatory aspects of it. Yeah, very well understood and have been kind of in place for the last 40 years.
In the operation side, creating a product, still you're following all the sustainability process.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest kind of foundational values at Lux Bio has been around green chemistry. So using an enzyme is just it's actually one of the pillars of green chemistry is to use a biodegradable catalyst. So what that means relating to our technology is an enzyme itself is biodegradable. It's a string of amino acids, just like any other protein, and itself will, dissipate and biodegrade when it ends up in the environment. That's unlike a lot of catalysts that are used in industrial chemistry, where they'll be very reactive and will end up as persistent pollutants. As well, when we're approaching, other elements of our formulation, we basically have fully made sure that everything is food grade, so well tolerated by humans, plants and animals, and the environment as our product biodegrades. And then on the overall product development side, we are now working with this amazing new biomaterial as a plastic alternative that itself has been recently certified as ocean biodegradable. It's one of the first in the world to have actually achieved this certification. And I could go on and on about it. I think it's so cool. And itself is degraded by enzymatic processes when it ends up in the environment. Most microbes already have the kind of machinery to degrade this biomaterial. It's called PHA, and it's amazing. So instead of needing heat, where that was where a lot of biomaterials kind of struggled because they needed such high temperatures to biodegrade. And that's where a lot of the greenwashing, calls came in. And it's hard. It's hard to make something new. But this material has kind of solved that. So room temperature, microbial and enzymatic degradation is how it kind of ends up being degraded in the environment.
So Paige, take us back to the beginning. You feed the gap in the market. You see the opportunity. How did you come with your first minimal viable product? Because we're hearing now further down the pathway that you're now getting into this market and you're now seeing another opportunity. So tell us about, at the very beginning, how did you actually come up with the concept, the idea?
So I'd always wanted to study bioluminescence. So I think that was always a little question mark in the back of my mind as I was in microbiology, as I went about my life. And then it was when I was volunteering at a music festival on the environment team, which I alluded to, and it was my job to pick up garbage out every day. And that's when I just picked up, hundreds of glow sticks. And this festival was on a family farm. So I kind of began to think, what would happen if, a cow accidentally ate one? And it was actually only a couple of years previously that one of the first papers was published on just how dangerous the chemicals inside are. There's now been a full consumer report that has been published on the issues with these consumer glow sticks because they've kind of gone undetected for a long time. Just how dangerous these byproducts of these reactions can be. So when I found that out, I was pretty horrified. And that's just when I had that thought, can this be done with bioluminescence? And that was a very long time ago now. And I ended up just kind of letting it take over my life. And I took some time off school. I worked for a year at another sustainable small business. I learned kind of the ins and outs of, really what being an entrepreneur running a business would look like. I'm so very grateful for that experience. And then I actually traveled around the world. I met with any bioluminescence researcher that would email me back. I ended up getting an internship around a bioluminescent bay. So I was able to study there for about half a year. And eventually I had, the kind of network and some of the, pieces of information I needed to build a very bad prototype. And then with that, I ended up going back to university and I pitched it at my university's, pitch competition. And I actually had something to show for it. And I still remember that feeling when I held it above my head and, it only lasted 5 minutes, but I lit it up in front of this crowd. And I think having that minimum prototype gets people actually believing, that you can make something out of it.
So how do you balance the scientific rigor required for bioessence technology and research with your entrepreneurial drive?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think it's really nice to get to work with a team of scientists and I kind of get to keep pushing things forward. I think that's always been my skill set is what do we need to do next? What's coming up next year? How can we prepare ourselves for that? I couldn't do this without a whole team and, they're doing that in the lab. So that's been huge, is working with the team because a lot of the work we do now is so complex. I couldn't do it all myself, not even close. Working with chemists, microbiologists, biochemists, there's molecular biologists. So it's been amazing to see how it's evolved over time.
Go ahead, Claire.
No, I have questions about consumer behavior. So my question mostly is about when you are selling sustainability products, have you ever seen any challenges with the customer, or it can be concern or any rejection?
I think I see this across a lot of sustainability companies is you're almost held to, because it's new, to this level of perfection by customers who themselves really care. And I think have been, fair enough, felt a little bit misled by lacking maybe products that had huge claims around sustainability. I think a lot of companies now are just kind of trying to go more the realm of transparency. So talking about what we have figured out but not trying to oversell it too much if there are any issues around, the sustainability or things we haven't been able to figure out. Yeah, but overall, it's been really encouraging to not only see that, individuals are seeking more sustainable options, but I'm seeing that reflected at a much bigger level. We just had a pilot this summer with a very large oil and gas company, and their corporate directive is to eliminate single-use plastics wherever possible from their operations by 2030. So it was so important to them that they could show their shareholders that they were taking steps to identify and trial new technologies that in the future they could use to completely eliminate plastic, from one of their kind of critical operations. So it was such a merging of values. I was shocked when they got in touch. It's like, oil and gas, like you have some stuff to answer for. But to see that, they were, it was a paid pilot. They were investing and trialing our very early technology. If they want to pay us, I'm happy to take their money. And yeah, so it's amazing seeing that, all the way up to some of the biggest corporates that we're now working with.
Paige, you talk a lot about doing B2B market and getting the bigger picture of these large organizations. What is the B2C market? Is there something coming in the future? Halloween's coming up. And by the way, my kids go through glow sticks like crazy. So is there an opportunity for me to get some Lux Bio?
Oh, definitely. So now is actually a really, really kind of exciting time for us because, the first few years was figuring out how to get a bioluminescent system being bright enough and lasting long enough that it was awesome instead of over very quickly and kind of disappointing. So that's what we've been able to do now. That's how we were able to fundraise our previous round is we had this technology figured out. And so now we've been focused on scaling it so that we're actually able to, ship it out to people like you and your kids for Halloween. So we actually currently are running pre-orders. They are limited. And then what we're leading up to is actually going to be launching a Kickstarter. The reason we're doing that is, as happy as I am that we're able to raise, from investors, the ideal world for companies, you're able to support yourself on your own revenue. And so with the Kickstarter, we're going to be investing in the equipment and the automation and the manufacturing that will be able to, bring down the cost and just churn these out. Right now, we're not at that scale. So we're making each one, very delicately, but we want to get the product out there, get feedback before we, continue to scale up the manufacturing and the product development. So we do have a pre-order. We're going to be shutting it down at the end of November. But if you want to get something for the holidays or for Halloween, it's available on our website.
Oh, I'm chasing it down, but it's just interesting because Paige, you brought up a number of different things in there, and I think it's definitely deserving of a second podcast. We talked about the financial of raising and the balance between what you want to raise versus what do you want to bootstrap, because that is the big. I want to maintain the ownership. But taking it further, how do you envision Lux biotechnology evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see it going? You started off with the Canadian Coast Guard. You're going to consumer-based elements. Where do you see this technology taking you?
I love to think about this because, so far, some of the most amazing ideas have come just from other people hearing about what we've developed. Chemiluminescence is kind of stuck in a tube. It needs to work in that environment, or else, first off, it's toxic if it leaves the tube. But secondly, the solvents and the other reagents, aren't kind of available in nature. Whereas for us, our bioluminescence is activated just by submerging it in water. And so one of the next applications that is completely new with the Coast Guard is this life-saving device that lights up a pool of water around someone if they are fallen overboard at sea. So it's completely new because this technology is completely different than chemiluminescence. There's been also some interest from food and beverage companies, different types of biomedical assays, and there's even some amazing labs that are currently working on long duration bioluminescence for different types of cancer therapies, and they can do targeted like tumor therapeutics that way. So there's just amazing things happening in the world of biotech. I don't know if it will go in that direction, but it's something that we always keep an eye on because, it can be applied in so many different fields. And so we just want to be known as the company that's developed long duration bioluminescence and then supply it to whatever market and whatever application really needs it.
I have a question about pricing. The balance of cost of sustainable products and competitive pricing is always a challenge for sustainable entrepreneurs. Do you have any challenge about that one?
Oh, absolutely. I think even beyond the sustainability markup and the larger cost of some of our base materials, for example, buying like a petroleum-based plastic, like a polypropylene, is 10 times less than buying this new, amazing biodegradable material. So I think that's where I'm waiting for these industries to scale up as well, so that their costs go down, our costs go down. But it's kind of nice because our product is very small, so it's not a huge impact, but it's something that I'm just really grateful for all of our current customers for paying a bit extra and making that choice. So many things that are happening right now, like this oil and gas company would not have been doing this trial if it wasn't for public pressure. Mm-hmm. So it really works. It really, really works. And everyone who supports us at this early stage when our costs are higher are helping us get to that next stage where we can invest in manufacturing and bring our costs down. And that actually really opens up, not just in consumer markets, but there's one of the biggest markets for glow sticks industrially is in commercial fishing. And they're buying, I talked to one company in Australia that bought 8 million glow sticks in 1 year for their operations. And it's estimated that about 5 to 10% are lost at sea every year. And that's where so much of the glow stick waste that ends up washing on beaches ends up. And they're buying very inexpensive, very high volume, like containers of glow sticks. And so that's where I want to end up, is where we can actually serve those markets that they would not buy these if they weren't worth it for them. Like the use of a glow stick, it makes their operation so much better because these fish, see the light and they're like, ooh, there's food over there. It's been actually a huge game changer in certain areas of the fishing industry. So they're going to keep using them, but they don't want to. And so I actually went on this trip to Australia and I met with all these different commercial fishing companies. And they're like, of course we would use yours, but our margins are so small. If you can get the price down, it's a no-brainer. So that's what we're working on, to get the price down so that, it's just a no-brainer. And of course they would buy something, that was not going to harm the environment if it was lost at sea.
So do you have any, when you're communicating with these potential customers, do you have any projection if they use their product for example, 5 years, there's going to be more cost effective for them, or you don't have any kind of projection?
Oh, definitely. So there's a few components of our products that are the key, drivers of cost. The biggest right now is our enzyme. Getting a completely new enzyme developed and then scaled up is actually so much R&D. Just getting one to work is hard enough, but then getting it made at scale is going to be where we invest a lot of our time and our finances and our energy. But there have been very amazing success stories of bringing down the cost of industrial enzymes across so many industries, because you can get 10,000 liter vats, brewing these enzymes. So, it's been done before. One of our mottos in-house is let's, innovate this one thing and then just follow in the footsteps of those who've gone before us for everything else. So the path to reduce costs on the enzyme front is very well defined. The cost of the, plastic alternative component is definitely another driver. But this company that we're working with, their name is CJ Bio. They are currently building 3 new huge factories to develop this material. They're really they're way bigger than us. They're a serious company, and they have investment from a number of different plastics companies actually. So seeing their growth has me very excited about what the future holds, for the price of those materials. And then from there, it's just automation. And again, it's not doing anything new on that front. A lot of things are very well defined, and so that's just where we're getting support and advice from people who've figured it all out before us. Now that we have this product that we know there's a very clear path for.
But sustainability is just not environmental; it's also about social impact, right? I want to know that what is the positive social impact of Lux Bio and how you communicate it in terms of ethical productions or job creation. So how do you communicate it with your community?
Yeah, I think as a startup, there's really only so much you can do. And that's kind of what I tell a lot of other founders. I run into this personally where like my personal values around like, for example, one thing I hear a lot for Canadian founders is they want to make everything in Canada. There's no way you're going to be competitive if you make everything in Canada. There's just no way. So yeah, I just kind of tell people like, don't let perfect be the enemy of progress. If what you're materially developing is much better for the planet and everything else, you could do when you're making a lot of money and you're profitable, and then you can reinvest in your community, and everything else. I just think it's at the early stage, you have to survive. And I think, don't set yourself, like there's a reason big corporations are so profitable. And it's very unfortunate, and I'm not condoning it at all. But for example, we are definitely going to be manufacturing overseas. There's no way that we could think about reducing the cost by doing that here in Canada. We tried. We talked to so many different manufacturing services, and it was eye-watering, especially for a product like ours where, it's a very low-cost, high-volume product. And there's other places in the world that have honestly like specialized in doing, that type of production. So I'm trying to take a more like global mindset, to that question, but it's been challenging. Like I did environmental sciences in university and it was very anti-business, and building a business, you just start to run into all of these like barriers that I just don't think are worth letting, tank your business if you're not able to solve at a very early stage,
Yeah, but even thinking, Paige, of the greater good. Like at the end of the day, the greater good of what you're going to do is going to make a bigger difference. And I think we all need to be thinking global because we can't operate in a vacuum. We need to think about where are the skills, where are the resources, where are the tools for us to get to where we need to be as a sustainable planet.
Absolutely. And I know saying the greater good of like, but it's true. It's so true. And yeah, again, it's our kind of, I always come back to this. I'm like, what is the one problem that we're solving as a startup? A startup can solve one problem. And I think maybe there's another startup that will solve this manufacturing locally question, but that is a whole different problem to the one that we are centered on. So yeah, I just kind of keep coming back to that. The one thing that we're solving is trying to replace chemiluminescence with bioluminescence. And then hopefully when we're bigger and are more grown up as a company, we can start to actually think about all the other problems that, are very real. But for now, we're definitely startup mindset. What is the one problem that we can focus on? And I think that will help us kind of laser focus and have a better chance of solving it at the end of the day.
And we see, we've seen Paige, we've seen successful organizations, the one that are really hyper focused on solving that problem are the ones that will eventually scale and meet other types of problems in the future and be able to. So
that's the dream. That's the absolute dream.
Well, Paige, thinking about all this, I know we've covered a lot of different things, but what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs out there who are looking to build sustainable businesses?
I think it's never been a better time to build something sustainable, and especially in Canada, probably in Europe too. But again, I'm Canadian, so I know more about the ecosystem here. And we have been so supported by the government, both for R&D, like salary credits, there's tax credits, there's, clean funding that exists here in Canada. And it's really incredible, not only that the government is supporting this, but how you can leverage that in order to attract, even more funding from, outside investors. So that's actually one of the critical things I tell other Canadians. I'm like, if you have a sustainability angle, like use that, like sometimes you don't even know, like there's a company that I really like locally called, you should talk to them, UVX, and it's a UV sanitization kind of system. And they've started to calculate how much chemical waste they're preventing from being used by applying their light system. And I just love that. And, it's because it's so real, and you don't have to come at sustainability, from just trying to be sustainable. There's so many new technologies that are just more efficient, and efficiency is sustainable. And the government is absolutely supporting entrepreneurs across like all different sectors if what they're doing has a benefit for the planet that can be measured, especially in terms of carbon credits, waste prevented, plastic reduction initiatives. There's a lot of funding for good companies right now. And then that's my tip is like, you can use that when you go and talk to US investors who will give you better valuation. If you can say, hey, I'm going to take your investment and I'm going to double it. I'm going to double it with Canadian non-dilutive funding. And they're like, what? You could do that? And it ended up being a huge leverage point for me when I was fundraising. And we were able to get, multiple US like VCs involved. Canadian investors, ended up following, which I hear is pretty standard. And it really, really opened a lot of doors for us. And yeah, I just encourage every Canadian founder to use that for all it's worth.
Well, Paige, we definitely have to get you back to talk about this element because I think the fundraising is a big one. I love where you're going, giving us some insight to this element. Before we end our show today, we have to ask you to throw out a challenge out there, a micro challenge, something maybe we talked about today, maybe something that Lux Bio is dealing with, maybe in the crowdsourcing element, whatever, or a macro challenge that you think that we should be thinking about on the bigger picture for our audience.
Okay, I think I kind of love this one. Sometimes people ask, how, again, that ideation, how do you find something that's not being solved when, you look out in the world and all you see are things that are there in front of you. And so I call it the garbage challenge. I was, this all happened because there is garbage on the ground. So I was like, why does this exist? And it led me down this whole rabbit hole. So that's kind of what I encourage other people to think about. What don't you see being solved? What is something that is bothering you? That could be a whole company, and sometimes inspiration comes from the worst places. So I don't know if that's as succinct as a challenge, but I'd be curious to see what people come up with if they were thinking about the garbage or things that are bothering them. What kind of company could that be turned into? There might be something there.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Great challenge. Yes.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Paige. That was another episode of Innovation Fuel.
Thank you for listening to Innovation Fuel. We are on all podcast streaming platforms, Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Visit our website at www.ucanwest.ca/Innovation Fuel. Also, follow us on Instagram at innovation_fuel.